As we get ready for Thanksgiving and as we get ready to gorge ourselves on turkey and stuffing and pumpkin pie, just know that President Donald Trump is putting together a team of the nation's experts to make sure that we all get healthy again after the holidays. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Secretary of Health and Human Services, got some really good news, exceptional news, really, when it comes to the health of the country and President Trump's plans to make America healthy again with the appointment of Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. I believe that's right. Well, you know what? We'll just call him Dr. J for short. Dr. J has been nominated to serve as the director of the National Institutes of Health, or NIH, something we're all familiar with after the COVID lockdowns. Dr. Bhattacharya will work in cooperation with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., says President Donald Trump, to direct the nation's medical research and to make important discoveries that will improve health and save lives. He's a professor from Stanford University. He's a research associate at the National Bureau of Economics Research and a senior fellow by courtesy at the Stanford Institute for Economic Policy Research, Stanford Freeman Spogli Institute, and the Hoover Institute. The list goes on and on. Together, Jay and RFK will restore the NIH to a gold standard of medical research as they examine the underlying causes of and solutions to America's biggest health challenges, including our crisis of chronic illness and disease. Together, they will work hard to make America healthy again. Now, this was met with incredible response by a lot of people who've been fans of Dr. J's, who have been following Dr. J, who understand that Dr. J isn't your run-of-the-mill government physician who just goes in lockstep with whatever the president orders. And during the COVID lockdowns, there was some pushback or blowback toward Dr. J because he questioned some of the extreme measures that governments and local leaders were taking in order to mitigate the COVID response. Like I said, a bunch of people on X have come out in favor of this. Of course, Jay Bhattacharya himself said, "I am honored and humbled by President Trump's nomination of me to be the next NIH director. We will reform American scientific institutions so that they are worthy of trust again, and will deploy the fruits of excellent science to make America healthy again." Seems like a good thing. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. spoke out and said, "I'm so grateful to President Trump for this spectacular appointment. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya is the ideal leader to restore NIH as the international template for gold standard science and evidence-based medicine." Stress on evidence-based. I'm sure in that one. Kaye Mead said, "What a bold, transformative pick by real Donald Trump for NIH director. There is nobody in America with the intellect, first principle thinking, and moral clarity to get the NIH back to foundational science." You can see there's a theme here. There's foundational science, evidence-based media. Apparently, a lot of these people in support of Dr. J believe that the current NIH director, or the NIH, has been used to maybe push non-specific or proven theories in an effort to control the population. Russell Brand wrote, "Wow, Trump has named my mate, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, as his pick to lead the National Institutes of Health. Wild," with an exclamation point. And the list goes on and on. Again, just a lot of people very excited for this pick. Rand Paul, congratulations on the nomination of Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. "I have no doubt you can lead the bipartisan reform the NIH needs." So a lot of the independent thinkers in Congress and in medicine are very, very pleased and very, very happy with this pick of Dr. J by President Trump. And it does show once again that President Trump is moving forward in an effort to use outliers and non-government officials and people who perhaps you're not overly familiar with, people who are not bureaucrats lifelong, and people who have different ideas than the ones that have been imposed upon us for the last 4, 5, 10 years, to do these jobs that are so important and really bring a new ideal to not just American politics and American economic reform, but also the reform of our health agencies like the NIH and the Department of Health and Human Services. So that is very, very exciting. There's also another announcement that was made yesterday, and this is right on the heels of President Trump announcing that he was going to impose tariffs on 3 nations, 2 of which we border, Mexico and Canada, and then, of course, China. He said, "I'm pleased to nominate Jamieson Greer To serve as the United States trade representative, Jameson played a key role during my first term in imposing tariffs on China and others to combat unfair trade practices and replacing the failed NAFTA deal with USMCA, therefore making it much better for American workers. His efforts under the former USTR, Bob Lighthizer, a spectacular leader in person, helped spur the return of manufacturing jobs to America and reverse decades of disastrous trade policies. Jameson will focus the office of the U.S. Trade Representative on reining in the country's massive trade deficit, defending American manufacturing, agriculture, and services, and opening up export markets everywhere. Jameson is currently a partner at the law firm of King & Spalding, and before that served as the chief of staff at USTR. So Jameson Greer is a private sector international trade lawyer who President Trump has tapped to deal with what is going to be a very tumultuous, trade climate. And we know that because there have already been some blowback or some pushback to President Trump's announcements yesterday about the trade policy, about the tariffs that he's set to impose on Canada and Mexico if they don't buckle down and help us with what we need. There was a story that popped up about the Mexican president saying, hey, Mexico suggests it would impose its own tariffs to retaliate against any Trump tariffs. President Claudia Sheinbaum suggested Tuesday that Mexico could retaliate, could being the prime word there that you need to pay attention to, could retaliate with tariffs of its own after U.S. President-elect Donald Trump threatened to impose 25% import duties on Mexican goods if the country doesn't stop the flow of drugs and migrants across the border. Sheinbaum said she was willing to engage in talks on the issues, but said drugs were a U.S. problem. One tariff would be followed by another in response, and so on, until we put at risk common businesses. She said Tuesday that Mexico had done a lot to stem the flow of migrants, noting caravans of migrants no longer reach the border. However, Mexico's efforts to fight drugs like the deadly synthetic opioid fentanyl, which is manufactured by Mexican cartels using chemicals imported from China, have weakened in the last year. So again, it's with Mexico. Immigration is one of the issues, but it's also an issue about drugs. And President Trump doesn't believe that President Sheinbaum is doing everything that she could, everything in her power to fight the cartels, because she's not. The Mexican government just doesn't, they don't have the wherewithal. They don't have the ability. They don't have the backbone. They're too corrupt. There's too many people that are on the take for the cartels and working with the cartels and, scared of the cartels, especially in law enforcement. So it's something that the Mexican government's going to have to deal with. They're going to have to think about where their loyalties lie. Where are they more scared of President Donald Trump and his impending tariffs, or are they more scared of the drug cartels that are ruining their entire country? And that is something that they're going to have lengthy conversations about, I'm sure. But it doesn't matter. Jameson Greer is going to be thrown right into the fire, dealing with not just our adversaries on tariffs, but two of our closest allies, both politically and geographically, Canada and Mexico. Canada, by the way, seems to have already surrendered to Donald Trump and will do pretty much whatever he asks if he starts to talk tough about tariffs. The Trump effect is very interesting because there's so many different aspects of the country and the government and so many things that have been weakened by President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that are already being strengthened again, even before President Trump takes office. And one of them is the military. There was a story that came out yesterday from the National Pulse, and the headline is Pete Hegseth's, that's tough to say, nomination is causing a surge in military reenlistments. Pete Hegseth from Fox News, military veteran, a very staunch military supporter. He's an author. He's written books. In fact, I picked up one of his books. I plan to read it sometime over the break. He's a staunch military supporter, and he's a guy who thinks DEI is the biggest problem we have with the military. And he's probably right. He said it's clear cut. The American military was designed for one thing and one thing only, and that is to fight and win wars. That is to be the most lethal fighting force on the planet. The goal of the American military is to go into a place where there's hostility or there's a threat to the United States of America, get rid of that threat by any means necessary, and come home as quickly as possible with everybody intact. Lethality should be the number one Should be the number one thing that we're concerned about. And we haven't been. There's been a lot of concern about DE&I initiatives, pronouns, pregnant women wearing the, comfortable flight suits. There's been all kinds of really weird debauchery in the military, and that has weakened the military and taken their eye off of the ball, which again is fighting and winning wars and conserving human life in the process. Well, Pete Hegseth's nomination has already caused a surge in military reenlistments. Following President-elect Donald Trump's announcement that Pete Hegseth will serve as his Secretary of Defense, apparently Bill Hagerty from Tennessee says this is already causing people who weren't necessarily going to join the military or who weren't going to re-enlist or continue their deployments to rethink their military status. A lot of young men are now jumping at the chance to join the military, and a lot of people who are in the military are thinking, maybe I won't leave quite yet. Maybe this new defense secretary, maybe President Trump returning as commander-in-chief will actually inspire me to continue to fight and serve my country.
John, all these are, as you said, are allegations. It's amazing how this comes out. Pete is a very talented individual. I talked with him earlier this week. He told me, John, about how many people had written to him and said, look, I was thinking about getting out. We have a huge recruitment problem, a huge retention problem in the military. I was thinking about getting out, but now that you've come to lead us, Pete, I'm going to stay in. That's the type of inspirational leader we need to see. Don't let these allegations distract us. What we need is real significant change. The Pentagon has been more focused on pronouns than they have lethality the past 4 years. We need to get back to business, and I think Pete is just the person to do it.
Yeah, look at that. The Pentagon, exactly what we were saying. The Pentagon has been focused on DE&I issues instead of lethality, and now we need to get back to that, and Pete Hegseth is the guy to do it. And as a result, people are looking at it going, you know what? I was going to get out, but now I'm going to stay in. And it's because they now have a figure that they can look up to. They look at Pete Hegseth and they say, here's a young guy. He fought for his country. They read his books. They see that he knows that there's a war on warriors that needs to end. They look at his tattoos and they go, this is the kind of guy I would trust to lead me into battle. This is the kind of guy I trust to make the smart decisions that are going to protect me, because it's about skill. It's about training. It's about deadly force. That's what the military is. It's about protecting the United States of America, her citizens, and their freedoms. And this is the kind of guy, when you look at it, that you can trust to do that. We always talk about Top Gun. In fact, I mentioned it yesterday on Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, my second commentary podcast, which you can download and listen to, how after Top Gun, military recruitment, especially in the Navy, like 100% almost it went up. That's what we need. We need figures in place who will inspire those who to serve, who haven't served yet to serve. That's what it's about. That's what Pete Hegseth's nomination is about. It's to inspire those who are thinking about serving to get off their butts and do it. And if it takes a figure, a television star, a figure from Fox News who's written books, who's served, who has tattoos, who runs around with an American flag suit, whatever it takes to get people to step up and say, yes, I want to serve my country. I want to join the military. I'm ready to answer the call. That's a good thing. And just by nominating Pete Hegseth, President Trump has already done, he's already done a ton of work toward fixing the recruitment and retention problem we had in the military. And this is the exact same effect he had with the tariffs. As soon as he launched or levied or announced actually that he would be levying tariffs, Mexico and Canada both kind of fell in line and started to focus on the immigration and the drug problem. When Pete Hegseth was announced as Secretary of Defense, people started jumping up saying, okay, now I have confidence in the future of the military. I'm going to stay there. And this is something that will continue over and over and over again. It's happening also with the border. We played you yesterday, Mike Johnson, the mayor of Denver, Colorado, who I guess he realizes that he's no match for the federal government. But Mike Johnson came forward and said that he would rather go to jail than allow President Trump and Tom Homan and ICE to come into the city of Denver and remove forcibly, if necessary, illegal immigrants. Illegal immigrants, those people who crossed the border illegally, who came into our country, who spit on our laws and said, border schmorder. We want a better life and we're going to take it no matter what. We don't care what's right and wrong in the United States of America. And the Biden administration not only let them do it, but aided and abetted them. Well, this Denver, Colorado mayor, Mike Johnson, said he would rather go to jail than allow President Trump to remove illegal immigrants and take them home. Well, Tom Homan said, great, we agree on that. If you're willing to go to jail, I'm willing to send you there. Now it seems that he's softening his tone a little bit. Here he was on CNN yesterday.
I think there are thoughtful ways to solve this problem. If they want to focus on violent criminals, we would be happy to help support pursuing, arresting, and deporting them. We've helped past administrations. We'd do that again. If they want to focus on adding more judicial capacity so folks with asylum claims can have those cases heard more quickly, we would support that. What we're not going to do is support deploying the 101st Airborne into American cities to pull 10-year-old kids out of their classrooms in handcuffs. I think that is immoral, that's unconstitutional, and that's un-American. And so I think if that's what they're proposing, they will find us resisting. If they want to partner on common sense.
Okay, which, by the way, is no one is proposing the 82nd Airborne going into Denver, Colorado and ripping 10-year-olds out of their classrooms. That's not the proposal at all. That's not how these things are done. This is, again, a false narrative by the left. But you'll notice that when he was asked, will you go to jail, he softened a little bit on the, I'm willing to go to jail for these illegal immigrants. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore, because he realizes that Tom Homan, President Trump, and the American people who voted for immigration reform, staunch immigration reform, are serious. We're all serious about this. And we need serious people. We don't need people going on CNN, going on the news and lying about soldiers, American military soldiers going into American schools to remove 10-year-olds. That's not the way it's going to work. And if you resist, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what his training is. I don't know what his background is. But just watching him on CNN, I don't know that he'd want to resist the 82nd Airborne. I don't think he'd be any match for them at all.
Solutions, we'll always be happy to partner.
So if Trump were to order ICE agents, for example, right, Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents, to go into the state of Colorado to enforce federal law, would you order, Mayor Johnston, your police department to resist them? Or are you speaking at this point more of just an act of, protest resistance? Or would this actually be an order to your police department?
Yeah, we won't use our law enforcement, and we don't think we need to. That's not what we're after. I think America's not after another conflict on this issue. They're after a way to find pragmatic solutions to this problem. And so
that's exactly right. And that's why they elected President Donald Trump to take care of it all. Listen, Thanksgiving is going to be a tough travel time, the largest and the busiest travel weekend that we've seen. And unfortunately, Pete Buttigieg is still the transportation secretary. But that's all going to change in January. I hope everyone has a very happy and safe Thanksgiving. I hope you have a great time with your family. I hope that your liberal relatives don't ostracize you or anger you too much. Just remember that President Trump is headed back to the White House. The Republicans won, and there's a lot of anger and animosity on the other side. When you come back, we're going to continue every single day to bring you all of the news, all of President Trump's picks, all of the things he's doing with his transition team. We will continue to report not just up until January, but through his first 100 days and the next 4 years. From President Trump to my mouth to your ears for the next 4 years. That's our motto, and that's what we intend to do here on the 47 Daily Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for subscribing. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you next week.